COVID warning. Tonight, cases to surge to scary levels, while 500,000 rapid tests are set to weave enormous lines at clinics. Alpha, Delta and Omicron, now the new complex COVID variant being monitored by international scientists. From flooded roads to where is the road? Huge swells causing major issues, but turning the coast into a surfer's paradise. Documents unsealed, the secret deal between Jeffrey Epstein and Prince Andrew's Queensland accuser Virginia Giuffre. And the needle in the haystack find, the baby gliders highlighting the most dangerous time of year for our native treasures.
This is 9 News Queensland.
Good evening. We've been warned that the worst is yet to come. Another honest evaluation by the state's top doctor as Queensland surpasses 5,500 daily cases and testing clinics face breaking point. One silver lining, the state's hospital rate remains low with just a handful of people in ICU.
It's Queensland's shot in the arm.
Are we ready?
A boost to the state's COVID protection measures.
Anyone who has had their second dose 4 months or longer ago will be able to go in and get a booster from today.
Meaning if your second dose was on or before the 4th of September, you can now receive your booster shot.
I'm all boosted up.
Overnight, 5,699 new community infections, bringing the state's total active cases to 25,924. Those numbers are bitter pill for most Queenslanders to swallow. But the hospitalisations are low. Just 170 people across the state in hospital with COVID-19, just 11 in ICU, 2 of whom are on ventilators.
That means that many people that you know are likely to have COVID, and you are likely to get COVID yourself at some point in the near future.
Like he's done so many times since he began his tenure as the state's top doctor, Dr John Gerard provided Queensland with yet another brutal but honest prediction.
The numbers of cases we are expecting to see through January will be very high, certainly in the hundreds of thousands, if not more, in Queensland.
But it's not the case numbers that continue to be the big issue in the Sunshine State. It's testing. Centres are at capacity. Health staff pushed to their limits. Wait times in excess of 4 hours.
People are lined up like cattle waiting at a trough for hours on end in the sun because of a government that can't plan properly.
And to make matters worse, some private clinics across the state have closed their doors.
Our website has shown that private pathologists were to be open today, but we have been advised overnight that in fact a number of private pathologists are not opening at the moment.
So to help ease the burden, the government today reminded people of the 3 primary reasons to come forward for a PCR test. If you're displaying COVID symptoms, if you're a household contact and it's day 6 of your isolation period, or if you test positive to a rapid antigen test.
It should only be for those 3 reasons you come out to get a PCR test, not because you're a close contact in the workplace or you've gone to lunch with a friend. If you don't have any symptoms, that's not a reason to turn up for a PCR test.
The government concedes that yes, there is a problem with the state's testing centres and says it's working on a number of options to help alleviate that stress. One of those options being discussed is for healthy young adults to simply stay at home if they have COVID symptoms. Now, 500,000 rapid antigen tests were dropped off in Brisbane today, and they will now be dispersed across the state's testing centres over the next week. So, yes, there will be some changes when you line up to get a test into the future. There'll be a line-up for PCR tests and there'll be a line-up for rapid antigen tests. Now, Paul, the majority of people receiving those rapid antigen tests will simply be those that are deemed close contacts and have come forward for their day 6 test in their 7 days of isolation. Paul?
We are certainly searching for light at the end of the tunnel. Thank you, Peter. Many Queenslanders have been caught up in a testing bungle after their samples were mislabelled. Some have waited more than 6 days for their result and now face having to line up again.
The line at this Kelvin Grove drive-through started hours before they even opened.
How long did you wait today?
3 hours.
That's rough.
Yeah, it was rough.
And for many, this is round 2. Amelia and Daniel were tested a week ago and still have no result.
And still no result?
Yeah, no communication, nothing.
Yeah, we tried calling the Queensland's number for the COVID testing and it's disconnected.
Yeah, we couldn't get through basically anywhere we called.
Some have been emailed by the operator, told to get tested again, their samples inaccurately labelled and unable to be processed. The Health Minister in the dark about the blunder.
Look, I haven't been briefed on that today.
The exact number of bungled tests not known. Dozens of people taking to online forums to vent their frustration. Some told the delays are simply because there's such a backlog. The operator of the Kelvin Grove site, Kovacs, not taking any calls today.
This message bank is full. Please try again later. Goodbye.
If you haven't received your test result within 7 days and you're still experiencing symptoms, the advice from Queensland Health is to line up and do it all again. A long and frustrating wait once, let alone twice.
The lack of rapid antigen tests is a national disgrace.
While operational today, the Kelvin Grove drive-through is not listed on Queensland Health's website as a testing location. Ebony Cavallaro, 9 News.
Let's go live to Tracy Atkins on the Gold Coast now. Hello, Tracy. Police cracking down on mask compliance. What have they found?
Hello, Paul. Well, of the 575 masks that were handed out right across the state, 529 were here on the Gold Coast. 5 people also slapped with on-the-spot fines for refusing to wear a mask even when one was offered to them, all at Pacific Fair, one of the major shopping centres here on the coast. Many more had their masks on them but simply weren't putting them on, and police say the majority of people who were not complying were visitors from interstate. Take a listen.
So the message to our community and to those visiting our states that mask wearing is incredibly important at the moment, and there are requirements to do that. We've handed out thousands and thousands of masks and there are still people in our community who are not getting it.
Paul, this certainly won't be the last crackdown of its kind here on the coast.
Tracy Smith live on the Gold Coast. Thank you, Tracy. It's hoped Australia's Omicron wave will peak earlier than first thought, with new data out of South Africa showing a rapid decline in cases. Laura Tunstall has a breakdown of the numbers.
Officials in South Africa believe they've passed the peak of their Omicron outbreak. The latest data shows cases have dropped 30% in the last week to less than 11,500 a day. It's prompted speculation that the UK may soon be heading down a similar path. They're predicting their peak in hospital admissions to be this week or next. Daily cases there are continuing to climb, currently sitting at 162,572. Here in Australia, we've hit a record 37,151 cases today. So how far off the peak are we? I asked infectious diseases expert Professor Robert Boy.
We'll see a peak in Australia within weeks during January in different parts of Australia. Sydney will probably peak first, then Melbourne, and then other parts of Australia will follow soon after.
Hospital occupancy usually peaks a week later than case numbers, but the overseas data does give hope that this latest wave will be over in weeks as opposed to months.
And experts are monitoring a new COVID variant, uncovered in France, believed to have 50 mutations. It's been identified by infectious diseases experts in Marseille, where 12 people are thought to be infected. As anger grows over the short supply and high prices of rapid antigen tests, the Prime Minister has tonight revealed a concession plan. Scott Morrison hopes to push through subsidies for some at National Cabinet tomorrow, but not for everyone.
The struggle to find rapid tests,
there's none anyway,
is fast becoming a political headache for the Prime Minister.
At a critical moment, we are missing a critical tool.
The nation today hitting an unwanted milestone of 500,000 COVID cases since the pandemic struck. Daily infections are now higher than they've ever been, leaving the testing system at breaking point.
The health system is under enormous stress right across the board.
Labor is accusing the government of failing to plan for the surge in demand for home testing after the first kits were approved by the TGA last September.
Home testing will be available from the 1st of November.
They have had all of that time to prepare.
Obviously, Omicron has once again changed the COVID landscape incredibly significantly.
Despite pressures brought on by the Omicron wave, the government says rapid tests won't be free for everyone. Currently, kits are only provided free for the COVID positive, close contacts and those with symptoms from some Commonwealth and state testing clinics.
Testing remains free for those who need it.
We think that if someone needs a rapid antigen test and they can't afford it, they should get one.
9 News understands the Prime Minister will take a plan to subsidise rapid tests for pensioners and low-income earners to National Cabinet tomorrow, while supply of free kits to state-run clinics will be bolstered. Leaders will also provide an update on how their hospitals are coping with higher cases.
We're really seeing limited severe disease despite those significant case numbers.
A reassuring message in testing times. Eliza Edwards, 9 News.
Big swell and high tides, thanks to ex-tropical cyclone Seth, have continued to batter our coastline. Some swimmers ignoring closed beaches. The danger is big but unpredictable waves, providing plenty of fodder for experienced surfers.
The golden sand and blue water of the Gold Coast once again replaced by white. As ex-tropical cyclone Seth inches closer, the line between land and sea is blurred by foam. Conditions are a slight improvement on yesterday. Still, kite flying is the go-to activity, with all Gold Coast beaches closed again. Most visitors keeping a comfortable distance from the swirling water.
It was coming up a little bit, so we thought we'd move back a little bit. Unfortunately, the luck with the weather wasn't that good.
Some ignoring the signs and going in, keeping lifeguards busy.
We tried to go in and then the lifeguard came over and he was like, everyone out of the water, so sadly we touched our toes in the water and then came back out.
A full-time job keeping swimmers from venturing too far into the raging ocean.
Right, no swimming today, thank you. Don't go in the water, ankle depth only.
You don't want unnecessary things happening where people are taking risks and then putting other people's lives at risk as well. I mean, not only the lifeguards are at risk, but other people might see that they're in trouble and venture out to try and help them.
Similar scenes on the Sunshine Coast, where most beaches also stayed closed. The morning high tide pushing water up over roads and off-road too. Further north at Rainbow Beach, this four-wheel driver caught out by the unpredictable tide. On Stradbroke Island, monster waves were posing as uninvited house guests. An army of volunteers arriving to bolster defences.
And everyone turned up with a smile and a shovel and sandwiches and carrot cakes. And we think we've filled 1,200 to 1,300 sandbags.
For the most part, beaches have been faring quite well. This scarping at Main Beach is the most significant damage on the Gold Coast, and it's far from the worst that this stretch has seen during storms of the past. Low-lying areas of the city and Cleveland filling with salt water at high tide. We could see more flooding as the weakening former cyclone marches on.
We could see isolated 24-hour totals approaching 100 millimetres in some places. It's very much dependent on the movement of ex-tropical cyclone Seth over coming days, which is still a little bit uncertain.
Easing conditions could see some beaches reopen tomorrow.
It is forecasted to drop tomorrow, but we'll wait and see.
Nick Kelly, 9 News.
Let's say good day to weather expert Luke Bradnam now. We've just seen some amazing beach pictures, Luke, but what can we expect tomorrow on the beaches?
Well, PT, as we just heard, a slight easing of conditions overnight, but it will only be a very mild improvement. To give you an indication, we had a gale warning in play for Sunshine Coast and Gold Coast waters today. Tomorrow, that's downgraded to a strong wind warning. Still going to be very dangerous, particularly on these open beaches like where I am at the moment in Surfers Paradise. And that swell will only ease slightly as well. We saw sets today up around 2.5 metres. Tomorrow, we'll see them up around a metre and a half, only for experienced board riders. And with another warning issued from the Bureau just about an hour ago for more abnormally high tides, I wouldn't be surprised if we see more beach closures, particularly on these open stretches of beaches. Now, have a look at these shots today from down at Narrow Neck. You can see no beach at all. They're just absolutely washed away with those high tides. We'll see these tides start to ease from Thursday considerably, and that's when we should start to see all of this weather system replaced with rain. As we just heard, PT, a lot of rain heading our way. I'll let you know exactly how much you can expect at your place. The full weather app coming up a little later.
Great stuff. Thank you very much. See you later in the bulletin. A US court has unsealed a document revealing a secret settlement between Jeffrey Epstein and Prince Andrew's Australian accuser, Virginia Giuffre. The Royals legal team believes he's shielded from prosecution by a clause in that settlement, protecting other potential defendants.
New scrutiny tonight about the friendship between the prince and the pedophile. A document sealed for more than a decade has revealed Jeffrey Epstein paid one of his accusers $700,000 to go away. Australian Virginia Giuffre signed the settlement deal in 2009, dropping her case that Epstein had abused and trafficked her to his high-profile friends. 12 years on, the contract's small print could have royal ramifications. It shows Giuffre agreed to remise, release, acquit, satisfy and forever discharge Jeffrey Epstein and anyone else considered a potential defendant. Prince Andrew believes that includes him. The Queen's second son is accused of having sex with Virginia Giuffre when she was a minor.
Didn't happen.
Do you remember her?
No. I have no recollection of ever meeting her.
Virginia Giuffre was 17 in this photo with the Prince taken at Ghislaine Maxwell's house in London. Maxwell was last week found guilty of trafficking young girls to have sex with Jeffrey Epstein. Virginia Giuffre reacted to that verdict from her home in Perth.
There's others who are involved that made this sex trafficking operation possible. Maxwell is just the beginning.
Virginia Giuffre's lawyer says the Epstein agreement isn't a get-out-of-jail-free card. They'll try to convince a New York judge tomorrow. In the United States, Michael Genovese, 9 News.
Europe correspondent Curry-Anne Greenbank's live at Buckingham Palace. Curry, what does this latest revelation mean for Prince Andrew? Could he, say, ever come back to public life?
Well, Paul, ultimately that's a decision for the Queen, but these allegations have already caused substantial damage to Prince Andrew's reputation and that of the British monarchy. And it's important to remember that even if the civil case gets dismissed on these grounds, it in no way clears Prince Andrew of the allegations. They're not going to simply go away, and that's something Buckingham Palace is well aware of. The Duke of York stepped back from royal duties in 2019, but he still holds 9 military titles, and there are some calls for him to be stripped of those titles. In particular, the coveted position as Colonel of the Grenadier Guards, but whatever happens next will be at the Queen's discretion. Prince Andrew has always maintained his innocence. Paul?
Curry-Anne Greenbank live at Buckingham Palace. Thank you. Smashing into a pub, threatening workers with a gun. Tonight, can you help police find these thieves? Alec Baldwin speaks out. His vow not to let the fatal set shooting destroy him. Plus, from tech entrepreneur to convicted fraudster, Elizabeth Holmes faces decades behind bars after fleecing billions from some of the world's most high-profile investors. And at the end of sport, the confused driver who took a very wrong turn.
2022. Queensland is still watching. Your #1 news. 9 News.
Armed, dangerous and tonight on the run. This is the frightening moment. 2 thieves break their way into a pub in Tewantin on the Sunshine Coast. The pair threatening a female staff member with a firearm, demanding money. Detectives are appealing to anyone with any information to contact police. A Victorian man accused of setting fire to Old Parliament House in Canberra has been granted bail. The 30-year-old, who can't be named for legal reasons, was ordered to return to Victoria and not enter the ACT. Specialist conservators began assessing the building today, but it could take months before the true cost of the damage is clear and whether any of the heritage-listed timbers can be restored. She was once the toast of Silicon Valley, but tonight Elizabeth Holmes is a convicted fraudster. The American tech entrepreneur found guilty of lying to investors about blood testing technology, which she promised would change the world.
A Silicon Valley sensation with a promise to revolutionise healthcare.
First they think you're crazy, then they fight you, and then all of a sudden you change the world.
Tonight, Elizabeth Holmes is a convicted criminal, found guilty of fraud for lying to investors.
Elizabeth, what do you have to say about the charges, the conviction, and 4 counts?
Do you have any reaction to your guilty verdict here?
She had all the answers a decade ago when her company Theranos claimed just a few drops of blood could be used to run hundreds of medical tests.
We've designed it to allow for the same operations that a technologist could do in a laboratory.
Elizabeth Holmes squeezed more than $1 billion from top-end investors like Rupert Murdoch, who poured in more than $169 million. A college dropout, Holmes modelled herself after her idol, Steve Jobs. But unlike Apple, the Theranos technology just didn't work. Women were told they were pregnant when they weren't. One patient was wrongly told he had AIDS.
Do you have anything you want to say?
Are you going to appeal?
Today, aged 37 and a new mum, Holmes is facing 20 years behind bars. A marathon trial and 7 days of deliberations. A jury found her guilty on 4 of 11 counts.
The guilty verdicts in this case reflect Ms. Holmes' culpability in this large-scale investor fraud, and she must now face sentencing for her crimes.
Throughout it all, Holmes maintains her innocence. She says she's made mistakes, but failure is not a crime. In the United States, Jerry DeMasi, 9 News.
Barely bigger than a fingernail, spotted alone in bushland without their mum. These tiny siblings have defied the odds. And tonight, we're taking you along on the mission to rehabilitate them. The plan to get the little marsupials back into the wild. That's ahead. Getting ready for the Winter Games. Our athletes sport a winter look as they count down to Beijing. Angry Parisians take to the streets as COVID rules are about to be overhauled. A rare show of unity as 5 of the world's most powerful nations pledge to avoid a nuclear war. And what this spectator spotted to save the life of a stranger. Protesters have gathered in Paris opposing a bill that would require proof of vaccination to enter restaurants, cinemas or catch the train. Currently, proof of a negative test is all that's required. The proposal is almost certain to be passed as France battles a surge in COVID cases, recording 1.6 million in the past fortnight. US President Joe Biden has reassured Ukraine that America and its allies will respond decisively if Russian troops cross the border. In a phone hookup, the two leaders emphasised the special nature of their relations. It comes just days after Mr Biden told his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin, there will be a heavy price to pay for any invasion. While 5 of the world's most powerful nations have pledged a nuclear war cannot be won and must never be fought. In a rare show of unity, the statement was signed by the US, Russia, China, the UK and France, the 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council. 1 month out from the Beijing Winter Olympics, our athletes are trying to dodge the worldwide Omicron outbreak as they compete to qualify for the Games. The formal team uniform was unveiled today as COVID forced countdown celebrations to be held online.
A rare break from competition to strut their stuff in the French Alps.
Yeah, I think just being this close to the Olympics now and kind of getting that first taste of the uniform, it's all starting to feel very real.
Freestyle mogul skiers Brodie Summers, Cooper Woods and Brittany Cox sporting the Beijing 2022 look.
We know that this time around it could be a completely different ballgame, but I'm looking forward to fighting, giving it my absolute best and hoping that we can make Australia proud.
Classic, simple and fresh was the brief for the formal Australian uniform designed by Sportscraft and Volley. Long-line woolen coats, turtlenecks and chinos to be worn at team and Olympic functions. The opening ceremony and competition gear yet to be revealed.
Beijing will become the first city in the world to have hosted both the Summer and Winter Olympic Games.
The official month countdown event had to be held over Zoom today.
On behalf of our athletes, I'd like to say a big hello and a huge thank you from all of our team.
No mention of diplomatic strains or the worldwide Omicron outbreak. China, a country of 1.4 billion, recording just over 200 daily cases as the government demands COVID zero. To even get to Beijing, our athletes, officials and support staff must monitor their health a fortnight out, lodging their temperature into an app daily. Anyone entering the Olympic bubble must also return a certified negative PCR both 96 and 72 hours before travel. Those who test positive during the Games will be forced into 3 weeks quarantine in a Chinese hotel.
And just trying to work together to get everyone there safely and give the athletes their best chance.
Team selection is just over a week away. Some of our biggest stars still trying to secure their spot in competitions in Europe and North America. Pyeongchang silver medalist Matt Graham back home after breaking his collarbone in Sweden. He'll now train in the Sunshine State in his quest for winter gold.
And if anyone can do it, Matt can do it.
Tiffany Genders, 9 News.
The right place at the right time. A warning from a stranger at a sports match that saved this man's life. Also tonight, why Alec Baldwin once again addresses the media. The mission to get these orphan babies back into the wild. And the jaw-dropping new show about to hit the QPAC stage. Actor Alec Baldwin has once again spoken out about the fatal shooting on the set of the movie Rust. In a video to mark the new year, the actor vowed not to let the tragedy destroy him, describing cinematographer Helena Hutchins' death as the worst situation he's ever faced. She was there to watch a game of hockey, but instead Nadia Popovic ended up saving a team member's life. The 22-year-old spotted a small mole on the man's neck and leapt into action.
She's a spectator turned lifesaver. Aspiring doctor Nadia Popovic was watching a hockey game in October when something else caught her eye, a small mole on the neck of a staff member from the Vancouver team.
I've never seen the mole. I didn't know it existed.
It just met all the hallmarks for, what I thought skin cancer may look like.
The 22-year-old got his attention and showed him this message on her phone. The mole on the back of your neck is possibly cancerous. It read, "Please go see a doctor." He did. And it was a type 2 malignant melanoma. Brian Hamilton was told if it hadn't been removed, he could have died within 5 years. Cancer-free and desperate to thank Nadia, he posted this call out on the team's Twitter page. It worked and the pair reunited.
I am so happy that we were able to let you know that what you did saved a life.
I really appreciate it.
I really, really appreciate that.
And back in that same seat, mid-game, a surprise the young woman will never forget.
Nadia, the Kraken and the Canucks cannot thank you enough. And together, we would like to give you $10,000 toward your college tuition. We know you're going to make a phenomenal doctor.
To top it off, Nadia's beloved Canucks thumped their rivals, but Brian is the biggest winner of all. Reid Butler, 9 News.
Yeah, pretty good. Well, it's far from a traditional theatre experience, but the skills these performers are bringing to the stage at QPAC are jaw-dropping. From basketball tricks to break dancing and performing with a bike, 360 All-Stars has it all. It's Brisbane cast, including a world record-holding acrobat and a champion BMX rider. The show opens tomorrow. A health scare sidelines Nick Kyrgios ahead of the Australian Open. Details are next. Is the rivalry gone from the Ashes? Pat Cummins expresses sympathy for England. At the end of sport, not a train, but travelling full steam ahead, the car that's ended up on the wrong side of the tracks.
And nice to see a little bit of sunshine around the southeast today. I hope you made the most of it. We've got a little bit of rain heading our way tomorrow and then some heavier showers towards the end of the week. Of all the details, the full weather report coming up soon.
Australia's Boxing Day hero Scott Boland has been given the chance to repeat his Ashes heroics, keeping his spot for the Sydney Test. Usman Khawaja's inclusion, the only change. While things are so grim for England, even the Australians feel sorry for them.
A tough call for selectors to make. Today, Pat Cummins delivered their verdict. Scott Boland won't be a one-test wonder.
I spent about 5 years sitting on one test and I hated when people talked about it because I felt like I hadn't proven anything. I'd only done one test match and he's bowling as well as he ever has. It's great that he can just keep going from last week.
Even though 6 for 7 in the second innings at the MCG will be hard to top.
I did say just last week, just nothing more than that, mate. We'll take last week, so don't try any harder.
Josh Hazlewood was unable to overcome his side strain.
We gave Joshy every chance we could. Just felt like he couldn't quite bowl at full tilt yesterday.
While for Cummins, a home test at the SCG continues his dream start as Australian skipper.
Hey, Mum and Dad came down to Adelaide. I missed that one. They go along the whole journey with you. For them, it brings back memories of, when I was 8, 9 years old, running around in the backyard, or them dropping off first game of cricket. So it's really special. I can share it with family and close friends.
The storylines around the Australians couldn't be further from that of the COVID-hit England. So much so, Cummins admits he even feels sorry for his Ashes rivals.
Yeah, I do a little bit. I think that they've sacrificed quite a lot to come over here.
England today declaring the strict COVID measures have hurt their performance.
The constant testing day in, day out is a distraction, and I'd like to think that we can find a better way around it going forward in the future.
Stuart Broad is back for the tourists in their only change. He felt in good touch today ahead of their fight to avoid an Ashes whitewash. Sam Jordan, 9 News.
The Heat are scrambling to find replacement players for the Big Bash following a COVID outbreak in camp. Brisbane was supposed to face the Sydney Sixers tonight on the Gold Coast, but that game has now been postponed to tomorrow night. The club is awaiting the results of PCR tests to determine how many replacement players are needed. COVID also affecting the NRL, with 4 Broncos players testing positive, meaning despite being asymptomatic, they'll be absent when the team returns to training on Thursday. Nick Kyrgios has pulled out of his first-round clash at Melbourne's Somerset tonight after struggling with asthma. But Naomi Osaka's tennis comeback is officially underway, with last year's Australian Open champion winning on Rod Laver Arena.
It's a place of grand achievement for Naomi Osaka, the two-time Australian Open winner today rekindling her love affair with Rod Laver Arena.
Gee, I like that from Osaka.
This her first competitive outing since making a tearful exit from Flushing Meadows almost 4 months ago.
Relentless pressure.
51 unforced errors, a sure sign of rust, and she needed 3 sets to defeat Elisa Cornet. Ultimately, just being here is cause for thanks.
When I got bored enough at home, because I was just sitting at home and doing nothing, I texted them and I was like, I would love to play again if you guys don't dislike me too much. So they came over and yeah, that's kind of how it went.
And her extended break from the game could have lasted a whole lot longer.
I didn't really know what I was going to do. I kind of expected myself to travel, I would say, but I didn't really feel like that was safe because of COVID.
Andy Murray last graced Melbourne Park in 2019. The 34-year-old wild card showed a few trademark signs.
Murray might have a steel hip, but it's working well.
Before going down in the deciding set. At the Adelaide International, the newly married Darius Saville was no match for French Open champ Iga Swiatek, while fellow Aussie Priscilla Hon scored a major upset. The world number 263 taking down Petra Kvitova.
And she's done it!
Matteo Berrettini led an Italian clean sweep at the ATP Cup, leaving the French in all sorts.
154 kilometres of pain and suffering.
The Aussies hitting the court against Russia a short time ago as they look to make it 2 from 2. Braden Ingram, 9 News.
Bigger, better, stronger. The Lions have promised. Fans only saw a glimpse of what Brisbane is capable of when they claimed the AFLW Premiership. The team will call the Sunshine Coast home this season before moving into their new multi-million-dollar facility in Springfield later this year.
The Lions enjoyed the fruits of their labour, but back-to-back premierships would taste even sweeter. 11 players from last year's grand final winning side were under 22, and they'll go in as one of the favourites this season.
Logic tells you they're going to get better athletically and technically, so we're starting to see little bits and pieces of that.
Yeah, they've just come back bigger, better, stronger this year, so yeah, we're incredibly lucky to have a young group, so energetic, hard to keep up with them sometimes.
The traditional captain's call went virtual this year. After being snubbed in previous pre-season polls, the Lions finally got some respect. While the Demons were picked by 7 captains to make the decider, 5 picked Brisbane.
We're still, grasping for some sort of recognition nationwide, particularly in Victoria. So that journey will never end.
The first test, a grand final rematch on Sunday against the Crows, who still feel they were the best team last year.
It's the same for us as well with those comments. We want to prove them wrong too. They've always been a great rival of ours. So, yeah, it'll be a heated competition.
Mark Gottlieb, 9 News.
One of the sporting venues earmarked for the Brisbane 2032 Olympics will next week undergo an examination of its hosting credentials for a major event. The finishing touches are being put on the reconfigured Royal Queensland Golf Course ahead of the Australian PGA Championship and Kari Webb Cup.
We can accommodate a lot more people. We've got the room for the infrastructure. We've got plenty of facilities out here. And the most important thing, I think, is there's plenty of space to come and have fun and really relax and, set up camp and find your own spot and really enjoy the golf.
Major winner Hannah Green has been forced to withdraw due to increased border restrictions in her home state of Western Australia. Finally, back on court after a COVID-enforced break, the Bullets were made to get creative with training sessions on Zoom while in isolation.
I will say that I hated it and I'd prefer I didn't do that again.
Brisbane returns to action on Sunday against the winless Breakers. Manchester closing fast, PT.
It's about 1980, I reckon. 1980. Thank you for that, Michael. Passengers waiting for a tram on a platform in Istanbul were starting to see a car drive through the station instead. The driver apparently ended up on the tracks after missing a turn on a main road in the Turkish city. The car eventually became stuck and the driver had to be rescued. Wow. At just 5 grams each, these tiny siblings have defied the odds in 3 minutes. The mission, to get these orphaned babies back into the wild. Your inside look at their rehabilitation. That is moments away. But first, Luke Bradnam's back with a check on the weather. Luke, how much rain are we expecting tomorrow?
PT in the city falls only up to around 5 millimetres, so really just a sprinkle, but we could see some heavier showers tomorrow down here on the Gold Coast, and then we're all going to see a good drenching over Thursday and Friday. I'll talk you through it. The full weather report coming up next.
This year, Queensland is still watching your #1 news, 9 News.
The total value of tech giant Apple touched $3 trillion overnight after the pandemic turbocharged the company's meteoric rise.
It only took 17 months for Apple to go from being a $2 trillion company to $3 trillion, the biggest price tag in history. That's US dollars, of course. It's more like 4.2 trillion Aussie. That means it's now bigger than all Australia's stocks combined. And even if every Australian pitched in their entire superannuation, we still couldn't afford to buy it. It also means, if it wanted to, Apple could comfortably buy a third of all houses in this country. The incredible valuation is due to the fact the share price was trading at $80 at the start of the pandemic. Now it's more than $180. Here in Australia, the share price shot to a 4-month high, up nearly 2%, with travel stocks jumping despite case numbers soaring. Miners BHP and Fortescue were among the best big stocks, and Macquarie Bank hit a new record high. And the Australian dollar rose across the board, buying 72 US cents, 63 euro cents and 53 British pence.
Fuel prices now, the average for unleaded petrol in Brisbane $1.52, diesel $1.63. The average on the Gold Coast, slightly more for both. Unleaded there around $1.56. The RACQ says fill up the tank now while we're still in the cheap phase of the price cycle. 2 orphaned gliders, no bigger than your pinky, have remarkably been spotted and rescued in Logan bushland. Lucky to have survived, southeast Queenslanders are being urged to keep an eye out. This wild weather misplacing even more baby animals.
Tiny, trembling, too young to take flight. Meet Mooney and Sunny, sibling feathertail gliders, coming in at a minuscule 5 grams each. The Joeys found without their mother in bushland at Greenbank.
They're so tiny, so they must have had very good eyes. We don't know what happened to Mum.
So small, they likely would have died. The RSPCA delivering the duo to the Queensland Koala Society, where they're being fed and kept warm.
So I'll give them probably another week before they're gliding, and they'll be under control then.
These little guys will triple in size over the next couple of months and will be cared for here until they can be released back into the wild with other gliders as a colony.
They need the warmth of the others.
Two of the lucky survivors this trauma season, September to February, the busiest months of the year for wildlife hospitals and carers.
This year we found it started earlier. It's quite busy. It seems to get busier every single year.
Warning, this wild weather the southeast is battling could see even more infant creatures swept from their homes.
If it's a baby and it's by itself, that's definitely abnormal, and you should definitely call someone to pick it up.
Lily Greer, 9 News.
Full weather forecast with Luke now. And look, I've just been having a look over your shoulder there. It looks pretty busy at this time of the night at the beach.
It is, PT, surprisingly so. I mean, the beaches have been closed, of course, down here on the Gold Coast, most of the southeast Queensland yet, but have a look up the north of where I am at the moment, Surfers Paradise. There's hundreds of people still down here making the most of what has been a mostly sunny day across southeast Queensland. Seen a sprinkle of rain. Good to see most people staying out of the water, though. I expect we might see some more beach closures tomorrow, despite that surf dropping off overnight. And no warning at this stage from the Bureau for large and hazardous surf like we had today. But have a look at the temps from around the southeast today. Not hard to work out why it's been popular down here at the beach. 30 degrees, the top down here on the Gold Coast today, and even warmer in the city. Got up to 32 degrees for Ipswich, 31 for the city, and 31 the top for the Sunshine Coast. And not too much rain around today, but that could change tomorrow. If we look at the chart for tomorrow, you can see ex-tropical cyclone Seth making its way in closer towards us. Winds will ease slightly, but we're going to start to see that rain pick up from Thursday. Around the country tomorrow, showers on the way for Sydney, heavy rain for Melbourne, partly cloudy for Adelaide, hot and sunny in the west for Perth, and a possible storm in the afternoon for Darwin. Back home, a warm one on the way for Cairns, getting up to 37 degrees, and in the west, an absolute scorcher. The Isa tomorrow, 42 degrees, even warmer for Longreach, hitting the mid-40s, and then along the Capricornia coast, mostly sunny day, warm one though, Rocky getting up to 37, and partly cloudy along the Guri Island coast with temps in the early 30s. Now in our backyard, pretty similar day to what we saw today. Medium chance of showers, could see the odd storm as well, particularly in the afternoon. Temps getting up to around 30 degrees for most of us, and overnight temps dropping down to a pretty muggy 22 degrees along the coast. A bit cooler in the west, dropping down to around 19. Strong southeasterly winds on the way again tomorrow, getting us up to around 30 kilometres an hour. So a strong wind warning for the Sunshine Coast and Gold Coast waters. On the bay, seas will get up to around 2 metres. For the city, a 70% chance of rain, 30 will be the top, and dipping down to 23. And then looking ahead, Thursday could see up to 25 millimetres. A pretty similar outlook for Friday, and then showers easing over the weekend. Similar for you in Ipswich, and here on the Gold Coast we could see up to 70 millimetres over both Thursday and Friday. But PT, got some nice looking days heading our way on the weekend. I'm looking forward to the sunshine arriving on Sunday.
Thank you, Luke. Up next, Laters with a current affair. See you tomorrow. Good night.